I do. I love Green Day. Green Day was one of the first kind of punk bands that I listened to that got me into punk music. They're actually going to be at Riot Fest this year. Um, but and I do like I remember that album coming out and that song coming out because like the whole album was just kind of hey, let's tone it back more angrily than what I just said, but and I do think that music really does have a a core place in the social conscience of the world. With one of my um, one of my favorite artists bands, in addition to Rage Against the Machine, uh, in terms of social conscience and everything like that, is Public Enemy. I don't know if you guys have heard of Public Enemy, but they it's the band with Flava Flav. He's he is not the core member of the band, but that's his band. Chuck D is the rapper. Um, but in the 80s and 90s, really all of Public Enemy's songs um, were socially, I would say, socially progressive songs about you know the situation of the world. Um, and I think that music is a really great way to bring that dialogue to the front without it being confrontational from the start. I mean, sometimes it is, but uh, you know, with American Idiot, there were a lot of people who were saying, "No, what we're doing is right, and we have to do this because of X, Y, and Z." And then there were a lot of people who were like, "No, look at all the damage that's happening." And I think that personally, that there's some truth in both sides, as it is with everything. But what happens, and I think it's it continues to happen in our world today, is that people kind of get uh, so caught up in their side and what they believe that they don't realize that the other side has a voice that and maybe has something to say that we should listen to. And I think that music is just a great way to bridge that barrier, because there were a ton of people that I knew who were very much on the yay war in Iraq and everything side of things when American Idiot came out, but loved that album. And you know that was something that was a step for them in reconciling the difference of opinions with people. So I 100% believe that music has a very important function in terms of the social conscience of the world. Another big band, which you may have heard of, may not have, that's really good about that is Pearl Jam. I don't,
Mm.
but they, you know, back in the early mid 90s, they were doing songs about bullying and about uh, um, not so much social injustice, but you know, trying to do the right thing and be the right person, in spite of the pressures of society around you, which I think is another part um, of that message that music can give to us in a more digestible manner. Because I think, if you go up to somebody and you say, "Hey, what you're doing is wrong, and you're an a-hole," that's the end of that conversation. You're not getting anybody the same to change. But if you go up to somebody and you say, "Hey, listen to this song," and then you tell them what the song's about, maybe there's progress. Doesn't necessarily mean that there will be, but maybe there's progress. That's just me on my soapbox about the power of music.
Music is definitely powerful. And I know we've kind of, talked about like in different cultures and like I said about Ramstein, I was trying to kind of self teach the language of German to myself. And again, you appreciate different messages coming from all different parts of the world. Like at the end of the day, we are all human. We all have emotions. We all have thoughts. We all have busy lives, right? So again, you have so much power to be able to write a song. I mean, from my brother, who I mentioned earlier, was a musician. I mean, he's more, integrated with schools and, things now, like with his career path. But I mean, I still am friendly with a lot of folks that he performed with. And I mean, one girl I know from him, she's like, I love writing music because I can reach audiences I never thought were possible. I think she grew up in a smaller town. So she's like, I was bullied. I didn't have much of a voice then. And, now it's like I have people that reach out to me from all over the world. Like your song made a difference to me. I connected with it because of this. And, again, it's just so amazing, how one may write something to cope, but write as a message as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything of value to contribute to that.
Mm.
Ravi, are there? I'm surprised you brought up Green Day. Are there any kind of songs in that vein of like the social progressive songs, or even just the moral conscience songs that really speak to you?
No, I mean, nothing personally. It was just like a friend was showing me all these songs, and then they were mentioning that, oh yeah, her favorite band is Green Day. So it was intrigued me in terms of like, okay, wow, there are some songs that actually talk about some politics that's going on in the world, and then like helping make people come back to the reality of like that's not how it is. And like you mentioned earlier, like see the other side of the world as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no personal songs at the moment.
My favorite song is a Public Enemy song, "Bring the Noise."
Okay.
If you have a chance to check it out, it's, I don't know, 80s, 90s, but it's very fun to start with, but it also definitely has a message of, hey, these people moving the dial forward, these people talking about these issues have a value in society, a very real value in society. There's another song that I'm going to talk about right now. Sorry, now I'm just off on my own thing with this. That always, like, it still resonates with me about things. I don't know if you've ever heard the song by Living Colour, Cult of Personality. So it's you should check it out. Everybody should check it out at least once. It's a really interesting song, and it was, I want to say early 90s that it was done, maybe later, around the time of Guns N' Roses' heyday, before they broke up, because they toured with Guns N' Roses. But the core of the song is that when you're a person who is just following someone and what they say, no matter whether you think they're good or evil, or somebody else thinks they're good or evil, that's problematic. And you can, like, that can cause issues, and sort of like you should have your own path beyond someone else. But it's really interesting it was really interesting for me because they bring up, really good leaders in the same sense that they bring up really terrible leaders. Like, there's a line where they're talking about Stalin and Gandhi in the same sentence as if they're very similar people, which obviously they're not, but they're illustrating the point of, like, hey, here's someone where people just followed them blindly, like there's always an issue if that happens. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's always like it's a huge uh, for me it's like a huge statement to things and to the world of kind of like forge your own path, if that makes any sense.
Mm. Yeah, I don't have any follow-up comments. I mean, I think though everyone has a different creative style. And as you were speaking of different songs, and I think about like, and I don't know the name of the song. I'm singing it in my head, trying to almost use the app Shazam. I don't know if either of you use that, but whenever I'm somewhere and I hear a song, I'm like, I have to have it. Like, and but there's one song. It's a female lead singer. Um, it's almost like her experience in a domestic violence situation. So there's there's power in music because you're able to tell a story that may resonate with someone, but also give awareness. And I know I'm kind of going back to the previous topic of, you know, some artists are advocating about certain things, whether it's actually doing an event to raise funds or
Yeah,
just awareness,
yeah,
or talk on social media, maybe on a live stream. But even just to have a song that in, I don't know, 80 years, kids of many other generations will be able to hear it, and maybe they'll have the same outlook on it or a different perspective, but it's going to be able to connect. It's not really ever going to go away. Maybe it'll be remade, to someone else's perspective. So I just think everyone's creativity can be created based on someone else. An artist can definitely be an inspiration to someone. I mean, we're not following their exact diet, meal plan, sleep regimen, but we can follow in the footsteps of what their messages could be. I mean, taking that power. I mean, I know, like, if I watch a TV show where it's a happy story, and there's a lot of really great endings, I could say, hey, like, life isn't always perfect for me, right? But maybe there's some different things I could do. Wake up an hour earlier, do something. Take the good, I guess, from maybe something we hear.
yeah. No, and maybe this is a little bit off topic, but what do what is it? Okay, well, to give some context, so one of my favorite songs that I listen to a lot, and it's also kind of a personal motivator song for me, is Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror." I don't know if you've heard the song, but the core of the song is basically, "Hey, I want the world to be a better place. I need to start with the man in the mirror," which is just a very beautiful song, very powerful song. Um, there is also Michael Jackson attached to the song, and you know, whatever your opinions on him are or aren't, there are definitely things that make him a polarizing and occasionally unlikable figure, or made him. Um, but where do you like? I have a lot of friends and family who are like, oh, I won't listen to these songs because I really just don't like this artist as a person. Um, and I like, sometimes I struggle with it, sometimes I don't care. But there is that, where is the difference between the value that the song has to you personally and the feeling that you're contributing to something that you don't agree with? I don't know if that makes any sense.
I think, I mean, and what I'm gathering is maybe you don't necessarily like the artist, but maybe you like the song, or vice versa. Maybe you don't like the songs that the person puts into existence, but you like the artist. I mean, I guess it's just up to the person, of what they think. I mean, at least for me, Sometimes, I mean, on my Spotify playlist, like again, I listen to a lot of EDM style music, so maybe a lot of things are, digitally rendered, like we mentioned earlier, but I'll have like one or two songs from somebody, but then I have 100 from Alan Walker, but then I have 50 from Tiesto, then I have, so it's kind of like, not that I don't want to know who the artist is, but maybe the other songs just aren't something I like run to, or I have to listen to this. Like, I don't know. That's just me.
No, I get it. And then I'm kind of in my own head on this now and off on a tangent. So if I need to stop, please tell me. But it's also, when you think about things like that of artists as people, I also think about, like, what is the cost? What is the mental cost? This is a podcast about mental health. What is the mental cost of being an artist, especially being a world famous artist? Like in the case of Michael Jackson, a lot of people don't like him and think he's a terrible person and did a bunch of terrible things. But there's also, he was world famous at like 5 years old and suffered through an incredibly abusive childhood where his only value was in his ability to make music. And I question and I wonder about the relationship that the art has, the music has with the artist, in addition to the relationship that it has with us, because there's a lot of layers in there that I don't know that we always think about, but it's a lot. And I think it for me, it speaks to this central theme in my head of everybody, of Sonder. I don't know if you guys are aware of the word. I actually learned what the word is from a song by the Rex, but it is the understanding that every single person in the world has a story as rich and complex as your own. But I think that when I think about those things in music, it triggers that for me of, hey, there is this very deep story and this very real person behind the music. And to bring it back to what we were initially talking about, we do kind of go all over the place in terms of conversations during this podcast, but I really like the artists that are talking about their mental health, whether it's through their music or through interviews, because it does remind us that even artists, which we tend to put on this pedestal and of in terms of just as an artist, not as a human, but are people with very real experiences and very real problems, no matter how good their life may seem.
No, and I think of another artist that I mean, I'm sure a lot of people watching will resonate with as well. Again, I'm a part of that Disney Channel era of all of those different Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, but one that I think of is Selena Gomez. So Selena Gomez was diagnosed with, I believe, bipolar disorder. So that's the mental health aspect, but then also diagnosed with lupus. So for her, it became very difficult for her to tour. And I mean, I've watched many interviews with her, and I mean, she went through a very public breakup from Justin Bieber. I mean, some news I just see online, so it's like I'm already invested in it, and then I have friends who will call me and just tell me all this news, and part of productivity, I'm cleaning, I'm talking to a friend, I'm learning, I'm learning about things outside of just sometimes work. So it's cool. And one thing I really find empowering about Selena Gomez is, and amongst other musicians, is, yes, that they are a person behind the name, behind all the songs, behind all of the success. I mean, we're all successful as well in our own ways, right? But, there's still that hardship that makes us become more successful. So for her, as of recent, I don't know exactly when it came out, but she came out with what she identified as her last album ever, because she's moving on to a new chapter. I think she's engaged, they're planning their wedding. Her and Benny Blanco, who's a very well-known artist, producer in the music scene. So this was kind of her, I guess, closure after going through such a hard time, but also still remaining present in the eyes of the public for her fans. Like, I just find so much influence in that. Like, it humbles you, you know, it makes you just go, wow, like something in my day, maybe I have a flat tire, maybe, you know, something happens, but then I think about, like, people are on TV telling their whole life, they're letting things unfold on social media, but you know, it's just amazing. It really is. And then for her to write music based on her experiences as her way of coping, as that outlet, but then to let us know there's hope. I don't know. I know I'm kind of jumping around a lot of some of the topics we already discussed today, but that just really stands out for me. Just the strength of someone that being so vulnerable to, you know, everyone out there. I mean, there's millions of people in the world. So
Billions. Yeah. Ravi, any thoughts on this?
No, I mean, just acknowledging the fact they are a real person behind the music is something that I like care about the most, and then respecting the creativity that they're brought on to us is very like humbling at a point, like, because that's something I cannot do, right? And they're out there handling their life plus making music for their fans. It's very grateful to see, and then grateful to be in the era of all these great artists that we live with. But yeah, in terms of like connecting to the person behind the song, I personally don't go deep into it. I just respect them as a human being, rather than like following their journey of their social media or their website.
yeah.
I'm a weird fanboy with musicians. I go super. I've gotten better about it, but when I was younger, I used to, any band, artist, whatever that interests me, I used to just investigate them and learn everything about their life and who they were as people and everything. I remember when I was younger learning about, just from being weird and super fanboy with an artist, learning about a meeting between Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and I can't remember her name, but a famous older, I think, blues and R&B singer, and this was in the early days of the Death Row Records, you know, early 90s, around that time, when it was like gangster rap, and when I was reading it, she demanded that they demean her the way that they demeaned women in their songs at that time. And she was like, no, do it to me, do it to me, do it to me. And they wouldn't do it, and they couldn't do it. And afterward, they had a conversation about like, hey, we need to stop doing this. She pointed out to us that it's not cool that we do this. And I just remember that, wow, that is a very profound moment of growth and development that was brought about completely outside of music, that you wouldn't even see if you didn't kind of be weird like me. So, but yeah, that's just my quiet aside, or loud aside, as it were. Circling back again to musicians and artists talking about mental health, I do think that there's a lot of of growth in that area where a lot of people are more comfortable talking about it, more comfortable bringing it to, I guess, bringing it out and working through it. I do worry that some of it, not, I mean, I don't want to accuse anybody because I really don't know. You don't know what somebody's journey is, but I do worry that some of it is performative. I feel like with the prevalence of mental health in pop culture, I do understand that necessarily, or not necessarily, but inherently there's going to be people essentially masquerading as some version of that. And I don't know where I stand on it. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Maybe it's just my own concerns.
I don't think I have any comments, no.
Aaron, can you elaborate in terms of what the exact question is? Or what you're coming across.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two parts of it. One, I see that that there's a lot of people who have something going on. They have something going on, and they're very open about that they have something going on. But they're not doing anything about it. And for me, this is just my own, I guess, anger at it is, you know, okay, you have something going on, you have these issues, but at the same time, I was always in the camp of it's okay to be X, Y, or Z. It's not okay to willfully stay there, you know? So I do see, like, Kanye West is the biggest example of that. You know, he's very open about how he's bipolar, but he's off his meds and he's Kanye West. But so I do have that worry and that concern about it. And then I also understand, I don't know where it's happening, I don't know who it's happening, but I know that that's just an inevitable part of society, that there's some people who are out there kind of saying, oh, well, I have these issues, and they don't, but they're saying it because it makes them feel more relatable, which, hey, my own stance on that is if it advances the conversation, if it gets people more comfortable with talking about their own issues, power to you, you know, like, it is what it is, but at least it's moving the dial forward.
I mean, yeah, nothing from my end. You pretty much explained what your thoughts were. Agree with it. I just don't have any intake.
No, that's totally fine. It's just, I mean, Allie knows I go off on random,
no worries,
random things where I'm just thinking about something, and I blurt it out on here because I have a platform to do so. But yeah, I also wanted to talk about, since we're talking about the artist side of things, about creativity as a or creation or making art, whatever whatever words you want to use, but as a coping mechanism or as an outlet for your own issues, because I think that so much of art, I don't want to say all of art, but so much of art comes from that place. I don't know how much any of us are qualified to talk about it, other than, you know, maybe journaling or you know, doodling or whatever. But I did want to get some thoughts on that.
Yeah. And if I can jump in, Aaron, a little bit on that, I mean, I'm not, you know, someone that has albums or songs for purchase or toured around. I mean, when I was younger, yes, I did a lot of music. I did a lot of performing arts back when I lived up in home at middle school, high school age. But then, once you get into college, you know, your career, your designated career path takes over, I think, a bit. So it becomes more of a hobby. But I remember when I was in eighth grade, I was a gamer. I still have an Xbox, all that stuff. And I know I'm going off topic a little bit, but I promise I'll come back. I had a Xbox 360, and I actually had a lot of friends from local to me, but then also around the country, around the world. One friend of mine was from Chicago, Illinois, and we met because when I would go on Xbox with my friends, I would write poetry and I'd read it to them. And this person kind of took me under his wing and he's like, you could write rap music. And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, I have been in studios with like Kanye West. He's like, I'm a little older than you, but I've done shows. So I'm like, sure, I mean, again, it's just this guy I met online. So we would go into like we call them the Xbox parties, or they're like a chat room where you can kind of speak voice to voice. But we actually would go on, I think at the time it was Uvu or Skype. Like I think Uvu is now obsolete, versus like Google Meets and all the new stuff that's out. But we would record music. Like he sent me a microphone in the mail. I mean, it ended up like we all met in person, like all of us, and we would take actual poetry of myself and other Xbox gamers that were bullied, and we kind of, wrote music about it. So my outlet, when I felt like I was the only person in the world going through bullying in school, became actually, I mean, again, we didn't really go on tour, or we never did any of that, but we all collaborated together as an outlet. So it made the school year go by and going into high school a bit more easier of a transition, right? Because we all had each other now. Like, we weren't all alone in different parts of the country. But I have to say that friend of mine, I mean, he's now passed, unfortunately, as of a few years ago, but he really taught me about, you can change something that you just find you're doodling on a notepad to actually something of substance to put out into the world.
Right?
I mean, do you guys think in relationship to like art, like what does that come into your head? Like, is the art something that is like colorful, or musically, like what do you guys see when the art word comes into your mind?
I mean, if I hear the word art, I think of maybe a painting, one of those really big like wall paintings, and I couldn't say what exactly the canvas has on it, but I can almost see someone sitting in front of it. Like you can't see their face, but maybe they're just painting away, and it's up to your interpretation of what that is, the final product, I guess. So I see how that could kind of fit in with, music, definitely.
No, I mean, there was a TED talk that I heard, where there was a fascinating like connection between color and sound, or music in general, where like sometimes it helps with like linking through emotions or like psychology. I don't know too much into it, but it's just always very fascinating of like how color is linked via music or sound. Where some people might see like if for color like red, so they might have a sound than what it looks like a red sounds like in a way. So I don't know. That's always like the fascination of like art for me. Is just like I feel like art and music is very similar. Whoever the artist is creating music and also creating like sculpture in a way of painting.
Yeah, and like you said, art, Ravi, like red. I think going kind of linking mental health to it. Like when I see the color red, I think of a stop sign. I think of being mad, right? Like when I see the color blue, I might hear the ocean in my head because the ocean makes me feel calm. So blue is more of that calming color. I think that's what they say too, like when you're painting your house, like do you want a more warm color, calm color? I forget exactly the terminology, but that makes sense. I'd really like to see that TED Talk for sure.
Yeah. Maybe I'll share it in the description. You can.
Yeah.
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 Kind of as an aside, kind of not. Back when I was a musician, years ago, a friend of mine used to throw parties where we would all kind of get together and drink, but we would play different music through a visualizer. I don't think it was an app; it was a program on our computer, I guess. And then, she had a really big TV, so we would all be very intoxicated and switching DJ duties while we're going through, basically just staring at this visualizer, converting sound into images. And if you've never done it, I very much encourage people to give it a shot. It's maybe not worth a full party unless you're intoxicated, but it is very, very powerful, at least for me, to see that transition of the audio of art to the video of art, essentially. You can see the movements, and for me and for all the people at these parties, we were all musicians. So we would see like, oh, this color is this chord progression that's working through and everything, and it was just an amazing and profound experience. A lot more fun than it sounds like, I think, but who knows. I also get concerned with and for artists when it comes to mental health, because it's a very taxing thing, and this is not just in music but in all art. I don't know if you've heard of the Forever 27 Club, because there's a whole bunch of musicians that died at 27. Huge portion of them by suicide or overdose. There's also a ton of painters that died at 37. So apparently it's harder to be a musician than a painter. But I think of back when I was a musician, I think of this conversation that I had with a friend of mine who was talking about how the art and the creativity is a codependent, sometimes unhealthy relationship where it lets you express yourself in a very real, very powerful way, but then you start to define yourself by your art. And so you look to recreate the emotions that created the art that you and maybe if there's any musicians listening, maybe they can validate this or deny this, but I definitely it resonated with me a little bit at the time, but where you're trying to recreate the emotions and the feelings that brought out the art the first time, and so you're essentially putting yourself on a negative path so that you can feel more creative. I mean, I think that's why a lot of musicians turn to drugs is hey, I need to be creative because I'm defining myself by my creativity. So it is very, to me, interesting how, like so many things in mental health, art and music is really a moderation, or can be a moderation type thing, where if if you have too much of it, maybe it's not healthy. I mean, I think that's likely just exclusive to the artists, to the creators who have to do it. But I don't really know. I've never experienced as a listener of music that feeling of oh, this is leading me in an unhealthy place.
The great example of that, or at least I know personally, not personally, the artist would be like Mac Miller. He had struggles with like mental health and like addiction at the same time, and he passed away, I think actually at the age of 26, like you mentioned, Aaron, due to an overdose. But amazing artist, like involved like some jazz, soul, like just amazing, like linking through music. But the other side of addiction like caused his life away to I don't know, not give his fans what he wanted, but tragically just dying via drugs. Yeah.
Hard to talk about music without talking about drugs sometimes. Ali, anything from a clinical perspective?
I mean, again, I know unfortunately, many have lost their lives for, using different substances. And I think sometimes, and I know, and I can't think of a specific artist to really share, on here, but I know that some have been very forthgiving that, when they are on the road, life can be very stressful. Actually, no, I can think of one. I fell in love with EDM music because of an artist named Avicii, or Tim was his, I say regular name, but Avicii was an amazing artist, and people would say, like, he took us on a journey. Unfortunately, during his time of tour, and I just know everything about him because I was super fan. I mean, I traveled to New York City to see a very limited screening of his documentary, and then it like came out everywhere. But I was one of the very first of maybe, I don't know, 100 people to see it actually put out. But it was just so cool to experience that and meet fellow people who appreciated him as a person and for his music. But many stars, including himself, had come on to documentary series and things and stating, like, I'm just so tired, I'm burnt out. Like, every day it's like your life is a party. People come and they're partying, and you want to live up to the expectations, so you're consuming different substances, including alcohol. Your mindset is altered. Unfortunately, sometimes it can also lead to health problems. I believe he had a lot of intestinal issues. He had been touring over a couple thousand shows in only a few years. He was a younger male, and unfortunately, he tragically took his life, and it was an awful day in the music world, I think, because a lot of people, again, wanted to hear more music from him. Again, he wrote, I think, one of his last albums that the family actually released with the help of a lot of the co-artists on that album. They tried to portray the same exact format of sound that was like Avicii's, but a lot of the artists came out and said, we're not him. Is this really what he wanted the public to hear? Like, certainly he had messages in his songs he wanted people to know and to learn and to hear, but no one could replicate him because he was what people would say the mastermind behind everything. So I know I went on a tangent, but like Mac Miller, like many other artists who tragically have passed away, unfortunately sometimes, and they've openly shared why, their reasoning for using different substances.
I don't know, it's, for me, it's such an interesting thing, and it's certainly sad, but when I was a musician, I've long since put all of that down, but making music, writing lyrics, whatever, was an outlet for everything that was going on with me personally. And it is it is very interesting is not the right word, but I don't have a better word, so I'm going to go with interesting. To see how something can do so much to benefit somebody, and then also be the core of what is driving them towards self-destruction. If that makes any sense. And I mean, like, art therapy is incredibly helpful to a lot of people, and I mean, maybe it's just the fame of it, you know, when you are an artist versus when you see yourself as an artist versus you're using art to help yourself. But then you kind of circle back to people like Michael Jackson, who really only saw value in his ability to create art for such a long period of time. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I do want to circle to the mental health aspect of it all, of that creativity is to me is a wonderful outlet for, you know, your a person's issues, and I don't think that it's creativity that's the problem, but at the same time it does seem to be correlated, if that makes any sense.
Do you guys think music goes like is the same thing as like having food? Like, is this like the chef? You know, like the chef is creating the food, but the chef should also know like what the food tastes like. For a musician, do you feel like that should be the same case?
I think you I mean, with any endeavor, whether you're a chef or a musician, I think people can definitely feel kind of like a chef, right? Like, you know, a chef is passionate, you know, based on maybe the taste of the food, the presentation of the food. Like, I don't want to say we can tell someone who's fake, but I guess that's more of just, you know, the simplest way of putting it. Like, you can see the genuineness and the passion behind someone's words, their vocals, their maybe even the rhythm they choose on a guitar, you know, their strumming patterns, whatever it may be. I know I'm using a lot of different musical terms, which I haven't pulled out of the hat in many years, but, you know, you can definitely see the difference between someone who wants to be very creative and send a message versus maybe just, you know, just writing something to write it, or make something, you know, to make it, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
Deep heady topics when it comes to music and mental health. I will wrap things up there. Thank you both for being on. Thank you all for listening. We've been sponsored by Lamco Wellness. Thank you to Ali, the intake coordinator at Lamco Wellness, for joining us again. And thank you to Robbie for hopping on board for this conversation as well. Please like and subscribe. Leave any comments you might have about this in the comment section below. And thanks again, I guess.
Thank you.